One decision can transform your brain, your body, and your entire future. Science shows that in a single moment, your choices ignite powerful neural pathways that rewrite the story of who you are and who you can become. For every woman standing at the edge of doubt, remember, you are only one decision away from strength, clarity, and unstoppable growth. This isn't about changing everything overnight. It's about taking that first courageous step, because the truth is, a woman's power doesn't wait for permission. It begins with one choice, your choice today. The science of one decision. Have you ever noticed how one decision can completely change the direction of your life? Think about it. Maybe it was the decision to say yes to an opportunity when every part of you wanted to say no, or the decision to walk away from something that was no longer serving you. Or perhaps it was something as simple as deciding to show up for yourself in a new way, like going for that walk, enrolling in that class, or speaking up when your voice was trembling. Here's the fascinating truth. Neuroscience shows us that these seemingly small decisions are not just abstract moments. They are physical. They literally change the wiring of your brain. Each time you make a decision, especially a decision that pushes you beyond what's comfortable, your brain creates new neural connections. It's as if your brain is saying, we're doing something new here. Let's build a pathway for this. And the more often you repeat that decision, choosing action over fear, choosing growth over staying stuck, the stronger that pathway becomes. Imagine walking through a grassy field. The first time you step through, it's rough. You're pushing through tall grass. It's messy, maybe even uncomfortable. But the second time, the grass is a little more pressed down. By the 10th time, there's a clear path. That's exactly what happens in your brain. One decision begins that path, and your repeated choices carve it into a highway of empowerment. Now, why does this matter so much for women stepping into their power? Because many of us have been conditioned to think that change must be huge to be meaningful. That empowerment comes only from the dramatic starting a business, making a big move, changing careers. Those are powerful, of course, but real transformation often starts much smaller. It starts in the everyday, ordinary decisions we make. The choice to finally trust your gut. The choice to stop apologizing for taking up space. The choice to believe that you are worthy of being in the room, of being heard, of leading. And once you make that decision, your brain rewards you. You feel it in your body, a rush of energy, a little surge of confidence. That's dopamine, your brain's reward chemical, telling you, yes, this was good. Do this again. It's not magic. It's biology. And biology is on your side. But here's the key. You don't need to see 10 steps ahead. You don't need to know how everything will unfold. All you need is one decision, one moment of clarity, one act of courage. That's the spark that begins a chain reaction. I'll give you an example. There was a woman I spoke to after one of my talks, and she told me that for years she stayed quiet in meetings, even when she had ideas she knew could make a difference. One day, she made a single decision to raise her hand and speak. Her heart was pounding, her voice shook, but she did it. And you know what? Not only was her idea heard, it was implemented. That one decision changed how her colleagues saw her, and even more importantly, how she saw herself. From that day on, she was no longer the woman sitting silently at the edge of the table. She was the woman who knew she had a voice worth hearing. That's the kind of power I'm talking about. It's not theoretical. It's not something you need permission to access. It is living right now in your brain, waiting to be activated by the choices you make. So I want you to remember this. Every time you stand at a crossroads, big or small, your brain is listening. Your body is listening. Your future is listening. And the moment you decide, truly decide, You are no longer the same person you were just seconds before. The power of small beginnings. When we think about power, it's so tempting to imagine it as something that arrives in a grand, sweeping moment. We picture a big decision, a bold leap, a dramatic change that suddenly transforms everything. And yes, sometimes life works like that, but more often, power doesn't come from one giant leap. It comes from the small beginnings, the little choices we make every single day. Think about how habits form. You don't wake up one morning and suddenly become the strongest, healthiest, most confident version of yourself. That version is built. It's shaped by countless small decisions, choosing to move your body when you'd rather stay still, choosing to speak up when silence feels easier, choosing to start before you feel ready. These choices may seem tiny in the moment, but in your brain, they're laying down powerful tracks. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine someone who's been struggling with self-doubt. She's been waiting for the right moment to step into her strength. She thinks she needs more time, more training, maybe another degree before she can finally act. But one morning, she decides to do something different. Instead of waiting, she chooses to take one small step forward. Maybe it's sending an email. Maybe it's making a phone call. Maybe it's showing up to a meeting prepared to share one idea. That's it, not a giant leap, not a reinvention of her life, just one small decision. Now, here's where the magic happens. That one choice triggers her brain to pay attention. The brain says, something new is happening here. Let's strengthen this. Over time, those small steps build momentum. What starts as a whisper of confidence becomes a louder and louder voice until it's impossible to ignore. She begins to see herself differently, not because she made one huge change, but because she kept stacking small wins until they built a new identity. And isn't that how most real transformations happen? Think about the most meaningful changes in your own life. Did they happen overnight, or did they start with one small action that eventually grew into something far bigger than you could have imagined? One of the things I love most about the brain is its ability to reward us for progress, not perfection. When you take even the smallest action toward growth, your brain responds. You feel that little rush of accomplishment, that spark of energy. That's dopamine at work again. It's your brain's way of saying, yes, keep going. That's why small beginnings are so powerful. They create a positive feedback loop that fuels the next step, and then the next, and before you know it, you've built momentum you didn't even realize was possible. The challenge is that we often overlook these beginnings because they don't look impressive. They don't look powerful enough. But here's the truth. They're not meant to look impressive. They're meant to create direction. And once you're moving in the right direction, even in the smallest way, you're already closer to the life you want than you were before. I've seen women transform their lives not because they made one monumental choice, but because they committed to showing up consistently in small, meaningful ways. That's where real power lies, in the quiet, daily courage to take the next step. So, when you catch yourself waiting for the big moment, the perfect timing, the dramatic turning point, I want you to remember this. Power doesn't begin with the giant leap. It begins with the step you take today, no matter how small, shifting from fear to courage. Fear. It's the one thing that shows up the moment we even think about change. You know that voice, sometimes it's loud, sometimes it whispers, but it's always there, reminding you of all the reasons why you shouldn't step forward. What if you fail? What if people judge you? What if you're not ready? Fear loves to convince us that staying still is safer than moving forward. But here's what's fascinating. Your brain isn't trying to sabotage you when fear shows up. It's trying to protect you. That fear response is deeply wired into your nervous system. It's the ancient survival mechanism, that once kept our ancestors safe from danger. The problem is, in today's world, that same system often fires off alarms in situations that are not life-threatening at all. Speaking up in a meeting, making a new connection, trying something unfamiliar, fear is still doing its job, but the danger it's warning us about isn't real. So, what happens when we choose courage instead of listening to fear? Something extraordinary. Courage doesn't erase fear. It doesn't mean your heart won't pound or your hands won't sweat. Courage is simply the decision to move forward anyway, and when you make that decision, your brain learns something new. I can feel fear and still act. I can be uncomfortable and still grow. That lesson rewires your brain in ways that expand your confidence, your resilience, and your sense of what's possible. I want you to imagine a woman standing at the edge of an opportunity. Maybe it's applying for a position she's been dreaming about. Maybe it's sharing an idea in front of people who intimidate her. Maybe it's walking into a room where she doesn't know a soul. Every part of her body is telling her, stay safe, don't risk it. But in that moment, she takes a breath and she makes a decision not to be fearless, but to be brave. And in that instant, her entire trajectory changes. One decision to choose courage creates a ripple effect. The first time, it's hard. The second time, it's still uncomfortable, but a little less so. By the 10th time, what once felt impossible now feels natural. Courage builds on itself. The more you practice it, the more your brain begins to trust that you can handle discomfort, that you can survive risk, that you can stretch into bigger and bolder versions of yourself. And here's something even more powerful: courage is contagious. When you choose to step through fear, you don't just change your own brain, you give others permission to do the same. Think about the last time you saw someone do something brave. Didn't it spark something inside you? Didn't it make you think, if she can do that, maybe I can too? That's the ripple effect of courage. One decision to act in the face of fear can light a path for countless others. The beautiful thing about the brain is that it's built to adapt. Fear doesn't have to be the final word. With every act of courage, you train your mind and body to respond differently. And that shift from fear to courage isn't just about one decision in one moment. It's about reshaping the way you see yourself. You begin to trust that no matter what fear throws at you, you have the strength to keep moving forward. So the next time fear shows up, and it will, don't wait for it to disappear. Don't wait to feel ready. Instead, ask yourself, what's one small courageous step I can take right now? Because that step might just open a door to opportunities, relationships, and growth you never thought possible. Fear may be wired into your brain, but so is courage. And every time you choose it, you step closer to the woman you were always meant to be. Identity through action. Every decision we make doesn't just shape what we do, it shapes who we believe we are. That's the incredible link between action and identity. We often think identity comes first, that once we feel confident, then we'll act with confidence. Once we see ourselves as leaders, then we'll step into leadership. But neuroscience tells a different story. The truth is, identity isn't something you wait for. It's something you build through action. Each time you make a choice, you're sending your brain evidence. You're saying, this is who I am. When you decide to speak up, your brain registers, I am someone whose voice matters. When you choose to show up consistently, your brain learns, I am someone who follows through. When you act with courage, even in tiny ways, your brain says, I am someone who can handle fear. Over time, those choices accumulate into a powerful self-image, not because you sat around and thought about it, but because you lived it. Let me give you an example. Think about someone who runs every morning. At first, it's not part of their identity. It's just something they're trying to do. They don't yet think of themselves as a runner, but day after day, decision after decision, they lace up their shoes and something shifts. Eventually, they don't have to force it anymore. Their brain has the evidence. They are a runner. The identity has been built through repeated action. It's the same with empowerment. A woman doesn't suddenly wake up one morning and fully embody her power. She builds that identity through the choices she makes. She raises her hand even when she's nervous. She sets boundaries even when it feels uncomfortable. She takes opportunities even when she doesn't feel ready. And with each act, her brain records the message: this is who I am now, and here's why this matters so much. If you're waiting until you feel ready or until you feel powerful before you act, you'll be waiting forever. The feeling doesn't come first, the action does. Your brain needs proof, and proof is created through what you do, not what you intend. This is liberating because it means you don't need to have it all figured out to start building the identity you want. You can begin today with the smallest of actions, and your brain will respond. Over time, those actions become habits, those habits become identity, and that identity becomes the foundation of your power. And let's be clear, this isn't about perfection. You don't need to make the right decision every single time. You don't need to succeed at every step. What matters is consistency. What matters is sending your brain enough signals, enough evidence, that it begins to believe the story you're telling through your actions. That story is far more powerful than any limiting belief or doubt you've carried in the past. I've seen women redefine themselves entirely, not because someone gave them permission, not because they suddenly became fearless, but because they acted their way into a new identity. One choice at a time, they proved to themselves that they were strong, capable, and worthy. And here's the most empowering part: you can rewrite your identity at any age, at any stage. Your brain's ability to change, to rewire, doesn't stop. That means who you were yesterday doesn't have to define who you are tomorrow. With every action, you're building the evidence of who you're becoming. So don't wait to feel like the woman you want to be. Decide to act like her today, and let your actions tell your brain the story it needs to believe. The ripple effect of one choice. One of the most powerful truths about our decisions is that they never stop with us. Every choice we make, especially the ones that move us closer to our strength, creates ripples that reach further than we can see. Sometimes those ripples touch the people closest to us. Sometimes they travel into communities, workplaces, even across generations. A single act of courage, a single moment of stepping into power can spark change in ways we may never fully know. Think about the times in your life when you were inspired by someone else's decision. Maybe it was a colleague who spoke truth when it was risky. Maybe it was a friend who left a situation that no longer served her. Maybe it was a family member who dared to dream bigger than anyone thought possible. Their decision didn't just change their life, it changed yours too. It showed you what was possible. It reminded you of your own potential. That's the ripple effect in action. And here's what makes it even more extraordinary: the brain is wired for connection. When we witness courage, empowerment, or authenticity in another person, our own neural circuits respond. It's called mirror neurons, specialized brain cells that allow us to feel what others are experiencing. That means when you choose to act from a place of strength, the people around you don't just see it, they feel it. Your courage awakens something inside of them. I remember speaking with a woman who told me her daughter had been watching her struggle silently for years, believing she wasn't good enough, believing her dreams were out of reach. Then one day, this woman made a decision to step forward, to finally claim her voice and her space. She thought it was just about her, but later her daughter told her, "When you did that, I realized I could do it too. That's the ripple effect. Her single choice didn't just reshape her life, it reshaped the story her daughter told herself about what was possible. We often underestimate the influence we have on others. We think, who am I to inspire anyone? But influence doesn't come from being perfect or having all the answers. It comes from being willing to act when it matters. And sometimes the smallest decision, choosing to speak honestly, choosing to show up authentically, choosing to pursue a dream, creates waves far bigger than we ever intended. And the beauty is, the ripple effect works both ways. Just as your choices inspire others, theirs inspire you. Empowered women create empowered communities. One voice sparks another. One act of courage strengthens another, until what started as a single choice grows into a movement of possibility and change. But it always starts with you. That one decision you've been hesitating on, the one that feels small, maybe even invisible, might be the very thing that unlocks someone else's strength. You may never know who is watching. You may never know whose life is waiting to be changed because you decided to rise. This is why the power of one decision is never just personal, it's collective, it's generational. Every time you choose to step forward, you are planting seeds that can grow long after you're gone. And that's how real legacies are built, not from one grand gesture, but from consistent choices that ripple outward into lives we may never even meet. So the next time you doubt whether one decision can really make a difference, remember this. The moment you step into your power, you don't just change your story, you give others permission to change theirs. Today is the perfect moment. There's a phrase I hear so often, and maybe you've said it to yourself before. I'll start when the timing is right. We convince ourselves that tomorrow will be better, that next week will be easier, that someday when life feels less busy or less complicated, then we'll finally take the step we've been waiting on. But here's the reality. There is no perfect time. Life will always be full. Fear will always whisper. And waiting only delays the power that is already inside of you right now. Neuroscience backs this up. The brain thrives on immediacy. When you act today, your brain releases energy and motivation that fuel more action. But when you delay, when you put off a decision for later, your brain actually strengthens the habit of hesitation. It becomes easier and easier to stall until hesitation itself becomes your default response. That's why deciding to act now, in this very moment, is so transformative. You're not just making a choice, you're training your brain to be a person who chooses momentum over delay. Think about it like planting a seed. If you keep waiting for the perfect weather, the perfect season, the perfect soil, you'll never put anything in the ground. But if you plant the seed today, even in imperfect conditions, it has the chance to grow. And once growth begins, it creates its own momentum. The same is true for your power. The moment you choose to act, even if the conditions aren't ideal, you begin to grow into the person you've been waiting to become. And here's the thing, starting today doesn't mean making a massive change all at once. It doesn't mean quitting your job tomorrow or moving across the world. Starting today can be as small as deciding to speak up once, deciding to take one step toward that dream. Deciding to have one honest conversation you've been avoiding. Remember, your brain doesn't need the action to be huge to start rewiring itself. It just needs you to begin. I once met a woman who told me she had been sitting on a business idea for years. She had notebooks full of plans, sketches, and strategies, but she never acted because the timing never felt right. One day, after hearing a talk, she decided to take just one step that very day. She registered her business name online. That's it, a 15-minute decision, but she told me later it was like a switch flipped in her brain. Suddenly, it wasn't just an idea anymore, it was real, And that one decision set off a cascade of momentum that eventually turned into a thriving company, not because she waited for the right time, but because she chose to start now. So often, we think the future is where our power lives someday, when we're ready, when life settles down. But the truth is, your power only exists in the present. This moment, right here, is the only one you can control. And what you choose to do with it matters more than all the planning, all the preparing, all the waiting you've been doing. Every woman has a decision in front of her that could be made today. Maybe for you, it's the decision to finally trust your own voice. Maybe it's the decision to prioritize your health. Maybe it's the decision to stop shrinking and start showing up fully. Whatever it is, don't let it sit on a shelf for another year, because the cost of waiting isn't just lost time, it's lost momentum, lost confidence, lost opportunity. Your brain is ready, your body is ready. The only question is whether you will decide. Not tomorrow, not next week, not someday. Today, outro of this video, what if the single decision you make today could rewrite the story of your life? Neuroscience proves that one choice has the power to rewire your brain, shift your identity, and ignite a ripple effect that touches everyone around you. Too often, women wait for the perfect time to step into their strength, but the truth is, power doesn't wait. It begins the moment you decide. This is your turning point, your chance to rise, and your reminder that everything starts not with 1,000 steps, but with one bold decision yours.